everyone. Welcome to Psyched Syed. It's your friend again, Sumbul. In today's video, we are going to dive into the history of psychology. That's the headline here, History of Psychology. And we are going to learn about the origins of the subject. I know the world history may sound boring enough, but learning the history of anything, literally anything, helps us better understand the present and the future. Okay, before we begin, I just want to say that the topic of history of psychology can be quite long, and so I'm going to break it down into three parts. Part 1, we have philosophy and psychology. Part 2 is psychology and schools of thought, and part 3 is modern perspectives of psychology. But in this particular video, we are just going to focus upon the part 1, which is philosophy and psychology. Okay, even philosophy and psychology can be further divided into early philosophy and later philosophy. So, we are going to begin with early philosophy. Okay, so psychology has its roots in philosophy also, which is very important to know. Psychology has its roots in philosophy. Um, and philosophers had been talking about human psychology even when the name itself was not in fashion. Quick back to ages, we had philosophers like Aristotle, we had Socrates, we had Plato, and all these philosophers explored a wide range of topics which we now extensively study in psychology, and they had written some important work on human rationality, happiness, pleasure, and also pain. For an instance, if we just talk about Plato, so he proposed that the human mind is imprinted. Human mind is imprinted with all the knowledge, with all the prerequisite knowledge, and it's the purpose of one's life to unlock all that knowledge through continuous learning, which in some ways I believe is true. Obviously, through learning, there's so much that we can do, there's so much knowledge that we can unlock that's there inside us. Another instance that we have is of Galen, who was also a brilliant physician. Yes, Galen was a brilliant physician in his time, and he introduced this idea of four humors. This is the idea that Galen proposed, four humors, and he believed that these four humors were responsible for the different aspects of human condition. He said that the imbalance between the four humors affects humans' physical as well as mental well-being. Now, what all those four humors are? Those four humors are sanguine, we have choleric, then we have melancholic, and finally we have phlegmatic. So these were the four humors that Galen proposed. Now, I'm not going to get into the depth because the idea here um, is just to introduce you to how the Greek philosophers and early philosophers had some idea of human psychology. So, that's the whole purpose here. And now we are going to come to later philosophy. Yes, that's it, later philosophy. Okay, so whenever we are talking about later philosophy and psychology, it's so understandable and it's so common that we know the names of two philosophers. First, Rene Descartes, and then John Locke. Okay, so he is Rene Descartes, and after this, we are going to have John Locke. So these were the two philosophers who were very much famous in their time, and they had some really good ideas. So first, talking about Rene Descartes. So Rene Descartes was a 17th century, let me change color here. He was a 17th century French philosopher. He's actually famous for his saying, I think, therefore I am. Now this is something which is very famous, and Rene Descartes was the one who said it. He was also a fierce rationalist. That's right, he was a fierce rationalist, and he emphasized a lot upon the power of logic. So, this was very important to Rene Descartes. He believed that the truth can be achieved through the concept of doubt. So, you have to be skeptic. Skepticism helps us. He introduced the concept of dualism, which is so much in fashion these days, which simply states, so dualism simply says that the mind and body are two different things, and body is material while the mind, it is completely immaterial. Now, this whole mind body dualism is highly debatable, and psychologists and neuroscientists are trying to figure out whether it's true. Some argue it is true, while others argue that it's the brain doing everything. What's important to note here is that a philosopher like Rene Descartes, so you can see his picture, philosopher like Rene Descartes, he actually managed to come up with ideas that are now serving as, one of the most interesting areas of discussion in psychology. So there's so much that we owe him. Now, coming on to John Locke. Sorry, that's E. So John Locke. So John Locke, he was an English philosopher. Rene Descartes was a French philosopher. He was an English philosopher, and he was also an empiricist. He was an empiricist. So what's empiricist? So empiricists are those who believe that individuals are shaped by the experiences that they have while they are in this world, and not by the innate ideas. So innate ideas, according to empiricists, they don't work. No, it's just the experiences. He further believed that children are like blank slates. And they have no prior knowledge, and everything that they learn in this world, it's all through the direct experiences. So if a child has no knowledge of picking up a glass of water, no problem, it can be learned. So overall, he was on the nurture nurture side of this whole nature nurture debate, which in a lot of ways is true, because there's so much learning that we do only after we are born. Okay, so we are done with our part 1, and we are going to continue with part 2 in the next video. I hope you have learned something from this video. If you have, then don't forget to like this video and also subscribe to my channel if you don't want to miss out on any future videos. I hope you take care.